Hey guys, it's Mike here. I wanted to make a little video talking a little bit about my process. Just a quick video showing a little bit how I do things. So when I start, I usually color the background to just not have the white background because it's a little bit annoying to compare what you're doing everything with white. To compare what you're doing with white is a little bit weird to me because it's just way too much contrast when you compare anything with white. So right now I'm doing the base character structure, so you can see that I'm not using a super opaque brush. That's a huge thing here. I try not to use very precise strokes. I want to keep it loose right now, and I want to keep it actually loose because I want to change it later. So I try to not commit too much to any strokes that I do. Right now you can see that I established the base structure of the character and I'm painting on the layer underneath the background. I'm trying to use a bit warmer color. You can see like it's a little bit towards the yellows, the oranges, and the character is a bit towards the blue. You can see that I'm painting it very dark. I'm starting with very dark tones because I want to build up slowly the colors, you know. I want to and the contrast. Right now you can see that I'm painting the ground and using the dodge tool to make it pop out and have a little bit of contrast of colors and values. You can see that I painted the shadow of the character also on the layer above the the ground, and I try to make it on perspective. Right now you can see that I'm adjusting the ground to the perspective. I did that before as well. That helps a lot to not actually have to draw in the first place. You can like draw it uh, in a plane and make adjust that plane with the tools of Photoshop. That helps a lot. Right now you can see that I'm painting a little bit of background stuff like rocks. I wanted this character to like have destroyed the lab that he used to live in or something like that. To have a little bit of story and motion in my image. You can see that the shadows there are a little bit towards the reds and the light is actually more towards the blues, like you can see. It's very strong. Right now it's really important thing. I'm actually adding some lines to add perspective, so you can see that just by adding those lines in perspective, the painting sort of moves, like you can see some movement in the painting. Right now adding some more details in the background, having some different shapes that lead to the character, having a column there to just have a diagonal and not very try to not have very vertical or horizontal shapes here. You can see that nothing is aligned. Everything is a little bit blurry and and not aligned because I want the image to have a lot of movement. Just adjusting a little bit more the ground plane. It was not perfectly set up. Right now, having a little bit of gradient on the ground. It adds a little bit of depth, and I start right now doing the light of the character. You can see that I'm using triangle shapes everywhere. It's a really important thing to make try to think about the planes a lot and try to be very simple. That way, using the triangles, it helps me to get a simple form. You know, you can see like I'm modeling a low poly model or something. I try to think in those terms of just making things simple and blocking in. This is the blocking in step. So I try to have it a lot of triangles to represent the planes of the character, and I have a pretty good idea of how the hands and the arms are going to be, but I don't commit too much on the hands you are gonna see because I wanna add more detail to other parts before I go back to this. So I try to always in my sketches have this this separated layer for the light. So you can see that right now I have two layers, the base design and the actual light area, and I put a layer in the middle of those. So we have three layers now. This layer in the middle is the reflected light to add more volume and show a little bit of the character, because I don't want everything to be in shadow. So three layers: base design, base color, the light area, these triangles, and the reflected light, the volume. So I try to always have not exactly those three layers, but this idea of separation. It's really good to actually have in your paintings. It helps a lot, because most of the paintings that I mess up are the paintings that I just try to rush things and try to make things quicker and just use one layer or things like that, and I end up just mixing up all the steps, mixing up the colors and composition and the light, and I just lose myself. So it's really important to keep things separated. And you can see now that I'm using the dodge tool on the transitions of the character. So using the dodge tool there, you can see I add more volume to the character, because I have a little bit of gradient on the light. It's not a flat color, you know. I also did some, and now I'm doing more transitions of those triangles to show more of the form. You have to know the forms that you're drawing to do this. So it's really good to just take a step back and really figure out what the forms you're drawing before you do this. So you can see that I'm doing some transitions. I'm using some grayish tone, and it's a little bit warm. So you can see that the light above, the direct light, is very blue, and the reflected light is also very blue. So to separate those two big areas, I decided to use a little bit of a warmer tone, so it just looks different, and it's just that it just has that purpose of looking different and looking and trying to separate those big areas. Right now I'm using the dodge tool to enhance a little bit about the forms. It's very important to start dark in your images if you're trying to do it like this, so you can add light later. I try to build up the contrast as I go. It's not something that I do just straight from the start. I just start adding slowly the contrast and see what happens. You can see that the actual leg has more reflected light. It's because it's closer to the reflected light object, which is the ground. So you can see that it's way stronger. Right now I'm adding some details on the hands, and I'm drawing the with the lasso tool, the glass. I try to use a combination of eraser and smudge. You can see that I'm using the dodge tool a little bit, so I use the smudge, a little bit of the eraser, so I can add these simple objects like this glass thing. It's really simple, and it's good to have it on a new layer as well. Trying to add more volume by some imperfections. You can see that I'm trying to make it look like it's around the glass and trying to convey this form a little bit. You can see that I'm drawing now this very reflexive liquid. I want it to be very toxic looking, like it's very neon colors and it's very strong. So I start with a very bright and pretty saturated blue, and now I add some dark areas with the lasso tool, with the selection, and I use the dodge tool to pop the forms again. So it's the same process of the character, but with a much more saturated manner and a much more contrasting manner, I'll say, because you can see that it's super bright and super dark in some areas, this liquid. And by using this very saturated color, it just pops out instantly in this image. That I'm doing the hand gesture. I wanted one hand to be holding this liquid and the other hand to be just angry. So I'm trying to be simple with his hands, trying to think about the planes you can see now that I'm doing it on the a very uh, on the a very normal layer. I'm not using any modes or anything at this moment. You can see that everything is a normal layer on top of each other. It's just the thought is important, the thought of separation, the thought of having everything very different from each other. I'm drawing the eyes. I wanted to have really asymmetrical eyes to add a little bit of character to this guy, and I think I'm just having fun as well, trying to have a really creepy looking dude, and he's like, oh my god, what's happening to me? Or thinking about just killing. Right now you can see that the shape of the mouth is very different from the rest, and I want it to be very skewed, like he grew without understanding how much he grew, so it's like very asymmetrical and weird. You can see that the teeth and the adds a little bit of a rat feeling to him. So I wanted him to be a little bit of maybe he was a rat before he turned into this giant dude, trying to add a little bit more of the planes, and now drawing the ears to add a little bit of more of the rat idea. Maybe it's not clear enough, but I tried to think about it when I was doing, trying to have a little bit of subsurface scattering here to add to make the ears pop a little bit. You can see that I used a very saturated pink, but I didn't actually make it bright. I had it darker than the light. It's very important to have this, to think about the subsurface scattering being darker than the light, because it's actually in the shadow area. You can see that I'm using the smudge tool right now, trying to have the forms a little bit more obvious and trying to have more of the shapes. I'm basically editing everything because you can see that I merged the layers, and now that I did everything separately, I can merge things and start slowly building stuff. I wanted to have very the aspect of some glowing eyes on him, because I didn't want the liquid to call off for all the attention. You can see that on the liquid I made it a little bit blue in the ground, because I wanted to have the idea that the liquid enables the light to go past him, to go past it and hit the ground with a little bit of color. I'm using a hard light layer right now to add a little bit of contrast on the character, making like the darkest darks right now. I'm using it with some different tones, like some greens, some oranges, to make the transitions a little bit warmer and leave the light to be very cool. Right now I merged everything. You can see that I'm using the channels. I select the channel with my you can see that in the right. I select the channel, I make everything visible, and I just paint with the dodge tool a little bit. Right now, trying to make it a little trying to make it pop a little bit from the background, just quickly, just some real quick values to make him pop. I'm adding some little bit of story here. I'm adding a little bit of cloth or something. And right now you can see that I'm using the channels to make it a little bit more towards less blue in the shadows and more blue in the light. Now the final touch is basically adding a little bit of reflected light, more obvious reflected light coming from the glass, and that's basically it. So the very important things that I wanted to mention is to try to keep things separated, not necessarily in layers, but try to keep things separated in your mind, like the light and the shadow, because they actually don't have anything in common. Like they don't mix at all. Also try try to experiment with that method with having a very low opacity drawing and structure in the beginning, and then start adding more and more opacity on the top. You can see that in the end of my painting I was painting with a basically a very opaque brush and very strong shapes. You start building them up slowly, and I think that sort of thought helps, because most people want to I did that a lot too, and they want to have the finished image right in front of them super fast. And I think it's more important to just start slow and really think about what you're doing more than just doing things, right? Commit Have commitment with your decisions and make strong decisions. So that's it, guys. I hope you liked it and I hope it helped somehow. So thanks